Hello everyone, it's Becca from Becca Books and Bujo, and today we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I think I always get the name of that tag wrong, but we're doing the mid-year freakout. We're freaking out about books. Okay, I have the questions on my phone here and we are just going to go through. So question number 1 is the best book you have read this year. And I think that is going to The Women by Kristin Hannah. Kristin Hannah is an all-time favorite author of mine, and her newest release did not disappoint. In this one, we are following a woman who goes to Vietnam. She serves as a nurse in the Vietnam War, and we follow her time in Vietnam and when she returns to the United States after serving in the war. It is tragic, and that's how I love my books. That sounds horrible, but there's also a little bit of hope at the end too. It's just a phenomenal story, and it's great to get the historical aspects of the war and how veterans were treated after the Vietnam War. Next up, we have the best sequel, and these are kind of sequels, companion novels. That is going to Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Abby Jimenez is becoming one of my favorite authors for romance. She has great romance, like good chemistry between her characters, but also real heart to her characters. There are things going on in these characters' lives and they feel so real and relatable, and I just love how she writes the characters, the story, everything about it. So in this one, we're taking place in Minnesota as per usual. We are following a young woman named Emma, and she meets Justin. They both have a similar curse that whenever they break up with someone, that person finds their soulmate, their person, and so they decide to date each other so that they can reverse the curse. And it was sweet and wonderful. The romance was great, but also the things that Emma and Justin go through are heart-wrenching, and you really feel for the characters, and the way they help each other out is perfect. So loved this book, and I don't know if it's a completion of her Part of Your World series, but I loved how this one related to the other two in the series. It was wonderful. Okay, next up, a new release you haven't read yet. There are a couple that I'm really looking forward to. The first is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I really love Emily Henry's books, and I just haven't read this yet. I bought it like when it came out or shortly after, and I think I'm just scared to pick it up for some reason because I really want it to live up to the hype. I think it will, but for some reason I'm not getting to it. And the other one I'm really looking forward to is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I have loved the two I've read by Catherine Center, The Bodyguard and Hello Stranger, and I hope that The Rom-Commers works for me also. Then we've got the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I think that this award is going to Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. This is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is a phenomenal book and story, and I think that we are following the other character. Why can't I think of his name? Linus? No, Linus is who we follow in the first book. Shows how much I really love the story. I can't think of characters' names, but I loved this story and the way we heard about the various characters who lived in this house, and I look forward to hearing more and jumping back into this world. Next up, the biggest disappointment of the year so far. I have a couple, and I don't have the books because they are both library books. So the first is Everything Else in the Universe by Tracy Holzer, I believe. Here's a picture. This is another Vietnam story, and it's for middle graders. And so I don't know if putting it next to The Women was a bad thing for it, because I didn't enjoy it as much. It felt slow. I don't know. I feel bad that I didn't like it, but it was a disappointment for me because I was really looking forward to it. I had heard that if you liked The Women, you would love this middle grade version of a similar story, and it wasn't for me. And then the other one is Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon. Another historical fiction that I have heard nothing but phenomenal things about, and it didn't work for me. It could have been because of the audiobook. I did not like the narrators, especially the female voice of the audiobook, but again, it just felt slow, and I couldn't get into the story. So those are my two biggest disappointments, I think, because there was so much hype surrounding both of these books, and they didn't work for me. Bummer. The next question is your biggest surprise of the year. I have 3 because I can't make a decision and pick one book. Okay, so the first is A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice. Who is this by? I can't remember, but it was a book I read for my Titanic vlog, and I loved this book. It almost read like a nonfiction. It was very factual historical fiction, and I loved that aspect. I thought that that would maybe turn me off from the story, but it didn't. I loved it. And this story is unique in that most of the book is the aftermath of the sinking of the Titanic. I feel like most Titanic stories, you're on the Titanic and then you're with the characters when the boat goes down, and that's it. But this book is basically like 2/3, 3/4 of after the boat sinking, and it was a phenomenal story. Again, I think just a surprise because I didn't think I would like the very historical, factual part of it, but it worked really well for me. Another surprise was Manacled by Senlin Yu. I haven't really ever read a fan fiction, and this one was really great. It was a Harry Potter fan fiction and a Dramini romance. It's basically The Handmaid's Tale meets Harry Potter after the 5th book, but it is in the world where Harry Potter loses to Voldemort and Hermione becomes Draco's handmaid. And it was a big surprise because it was a huge book and I was nervous to read it. Also, like, jumping back into that world, not with the way that we're used to the world, I was scared of, but I absolutely loved it. And then lastly, a nonfiction that I was very surprised by because I hate the act of doing laundry. I actually loved this book called Laundry Love by Patrick Richardson, and it has completely changed my mind on laundry. I now enjoy doing laundry and folding laundry and getting out stains. This book has a cure for getting every single kind of stain out of every single kind of fabric. It's really, really good, and I would recommend you read it. You take into consideration what Patrick Richardson has to say, and you should listen to it too because it is his voice. I want to go visit Patrick Richardson's store in the Mall of America, which is in Minnesota. It'd be so fun to meet him and just bask in his presence because I feel like he's a genius that made me love doing a horrible chore, or what I used to think was a horrible chore. So this was a big surprise, and I'm super glad I read it. Okay, next question is a new favorite author. I have 2. Again, we're seeing a theme here, but I can't pick. So the first is TJ Newman, who wrote Falling and Drowning. She is a retired, is she retired? Or she used to be a flight attendant? A former bookseller turned flight attendant. Okay, yeah, so now I think she primarily writes, but she was a flight attendant and she writes these really thrilling stories about plane crashes. And I loved both Falling and Drowning. I think I liked Falling more than Drowning, maybe just because I read Falling first, but still really captivating, and I think I listened to both of these books in a day or 2. And the other is a middle grade author, at least the books I've read from her are middle grade. This is Donna Barba Higuera. I read both Alebrijes and The Last Quintista by Donna Barba Higuera during middle grade March, and I love these sci-fi middle grade novels. They tell wonderful stories, and she actually uses that as a theme in her storytelling. So yeah, really good books, and they are stories that will stick with me for a long time. I look forward to seeing what she has coming next. The next is a newest fictional crush. And yes, I do have one. I know a lot of people are like, I don't have a crush, but I am one who crushes on book characters. And this one is a little questionable because I probably shouldn't crush on him, but I did. This is Hayes Campbell from The Idea of You. Hayes is a 21-year-old pop star. Actually, he's only 20 in the book. But I freaked out over this book. I was a big One Direction fan. Low-key still am. And this book is basically a fan fiction of Harry Styles and an older woman falling in love with Harry Styles. There's a movie about it now with Anne Hathaway as the main character. The movie was pretty good. Very different than the book, and I absolutely love the book. I love Hayes Campbell. I know that is maybe questionable because he maybe isn't the best boyfriend because he's a rock star, and we see how that affects Solène. However, still pretty dreamy and a singer. But like real life, if I had to pick someone to spend the rest of my time with, I think it would be Gio from A Winter in New York. He runs a gelato shop, and if you don't know me, I love ice cream. And so the idea of having a boyfriend or crush or whatever that makes ice cream for a living, we'd get along really well. He also was just a very sweet man, a family man, which I see qualities in Willie and Gio. So good thing I found Willie. Okay, next up. A book that made me cry. The obvious one was one of my most recent reads, which is A Psalm for the Wild-Built by Becky Chambers. This one made me feel so seen and loved and worthy, and that's what made me cry. I already read the quote in a previous vlog where I read my entire June TBR in 1 week, so you can check it out there. But just lovely. It made me cry out of happiness and worthiness. Super good. Some other ones just like that receive runner-up for books that made me cry are A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus. This was just a sweet historical fiction about 3 kids who have to leave London during the Blitz. And is that what it's called? The Blitz? Anyway, they leave London during World War II because of bombings, and they find this perfect family out in the country. That made me cry of happiness and sadness, probably too. And then I cried during A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice, which is the Titanic book, and I cried in The Idea of You also. Okay, a book that made me happy. It's gonna go to The Idea of You by Robin Lee or Manacled by Sen-Lin Yu. I feel like those are the ones I raved about to the most people in real life and on YouTube, and they just like made me feel so happy to be reading. So those are my answers. Next up, the most beautiful book you bought. I know that this author is controversial, but I am really looking forward to having these editions, especially for my kids, and sharing the story of Harry Potter. And so the most favorite beautiful book I got for this first half of the year is the Mina Lima edition of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. This is created by Mina Lima, who were the artistic directors of the movies, and they took the books and made like just such beautiful content. There are pop-outs and fun like interactive things to do in the book, and I really look forward to reading this edition, but also just having it on my shelves because it's gorgeous. And lastly, books you still need to read before the end of the year. And every booktuber is like, good joke, because we have so many books that we want to read. I'm gonna get my book cart because these house my self-destruct books, and these need to be read by the end of November. So I'll just quickly go through them with you. We have All In by Simona Arnstedt, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet A. Jacobs, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, Lexicon by Max Barry, The Aviator's Wife by Melanie Benjamin, Behind the Beautiful Forevers by Catherine Boo, Commonwealth by Ann Patchett, and Priest Daddy by Patricia Lockwood. So I think that's 7 books I absolutely have to get to by the end of the year / end of November, or else I have to unhaul them. So, I mean, there are obviously hundreds of other books I would like to read, but we'll just start with those 7. If you are interested in hearing more stats, stay tuned for a goals update video where I will go through my 2024 lifestyle goals and reading goals so you can hear numbers, because I'm all about the numbers. That'll come next week sometime. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what is your favorite book of 2024 so far. I would love to hear what you have to say and add that book to my list. Thanks again, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye.